Top of the morning, everyone. We're back, just waiting for my guest, Nombu. She'll be joining us anytime soon. Just give me a few minutes. Nombu's going to be online in the next few minutes. So yeah, get ready. It's going to be awesome. Awesome. Nombu, are you ready?
I am ready. Yes, Yes, I'm ready.
You are very
My
much
goodness,
live.
I am
Very,
ready.
very much live. You know.
Oh,
So,
hi.
nah, you'll be fine. You'll be. It's gonna be fun. You've done this so many times before, so this can't be
I know,
something new
right?
to
But
you.
I've done.
You know, you've,
But remember, I do it two people. So
yeah.
once you have to do it, it's very different.
Is it? Nah, don't worry.
Very
It's
different.
not gonna be the worst. It's gonna be absolutely awesome. So no need to worry about that. So yeah,
Perfect.
I think in order to we're gonna start in 2 minutes again, but like just
Okay.
hang in there, guys. Uh, I'm gonna just keep Nombu on mute for now, just to introduce the topic. So as I mentioned, guys, today's topic is actually trying to focus a bit more on interviews. I do see there's some questions that are coming up about all the other things that are just besides the interviews. Some of the guys are asking about the CTC. Why do companies ask for CTC? Some of the guys are also asking questions about, the interview process. Where do we start? How do we do this? So it's gonna be awesome now. So in some of the types of interviews that you guys are going to be dealing with, I think it's going to be more talking about telephonic interviews that a lot of you guys deal with on a daily basis. There hasn't been that many face-to-face interviews in the last couple of months, mainly because of Corona. So the assumption is that things will change as we go along, and we don't know if there's going to be a new normal. There's also normally panel interviews that are also done via these means, which is through the different streaming means, whether it's Skype for business, or we're talking about Microsoft Teams or Zoom, or whichever tool that might be being used out there. And then from there, there's sometimes where there's assessments that are done. So guys, like I said, please get your questions ready. Before we actually start, I'm going to get my guests back on. Nombu, I think if you can just quickly introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, what you have done,
Yeah.
how you do this, and why you do this, and why on earth you'd
Awesome.
actually become a recruiter. If you can share with our guests so that they understand,
Yeah.
why would Nombu do this to herself?
Right. I love what
Yeah.
I do. Geez, where do I start? So I'm Nombu, like Tshidi's already mentioned. And I'm in the talent acquisition space, where I get to look after all the executive roles across the group. So why do I do what I do? Sure. That's always a tough question because I think every time you have to answer it, you almost try and find the best way to kind of relate to the audience or the person who's asking you. But for me, really, it's just about that kick that I get from giving someone advice about something as important as a career, and yeah, so just giving someone advice about something important as a career, knowing what's happening in the market enough to with people, because I think sometimes you're in your particular field and you may never really know everything that is happening. So just having those extra insights to be able to share with someone, and also just to advise, so that people understand whether it is a right move or not, or whether it's the right time or not. Because I think sometimes we want to move, but it may not really be the right time. So it's also just important to kind of know and have that balance.
Yeah. So for somebody that, did you just always wanted to be in recruitment? Where did it start?
No. I didn't want to be in recruitment. I didn't even know about recruitment. Recruitment found me, hey. So recruitment found me. Yeah. I was a sports girl. And that was my life, and that's what I wanted to do forever, in fact. But I guess some of the fundamentals that I learned from being a sports person and being a team player then led me to what I do now. But yeah, I didn't know anything about recruitment. In fact, when I started, I knew nothing about recruitment. I knew nothing about the corporate world, because all I knew was just sports. But yeah, it's changed over time, and yeah, I love it. I enjoy it.
Okay. And then, and one of the other exciting things about being in recruitment is you get to meet so many different people from different backgrounds. Some of the people that you meet are really in need of support. Like, maybe if you can take us through like the times where you were blown away by the hard work, because I think a lot of the times in the recruitment space, we tend to remove the humanness out of the conversations when we speak to recruiters, because sometimes people think that recruiters don't really have a soul. So I think maybe if you can, like, how far do you go when it comes to trying to assist a candidate? I mean, you've been on the agency side, you've been on the in-house recruitment side. Like, what are some of the things that you've done just to get the candidate ready to make sure that they actually get the best out of what is happening?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for me, it's always important to have good client experience, and it's never been for me about getting a bum on a seat kind of thing. It's always about putting the right person there, and making sure that it's also for the best for that person. So if I could think of some of the things that I've had to do to close off an offer, I had a candidate who was based in Cape Town, and the client wanted to meet the candidate face to face. So he then booked his flight, but then he didn't know Joburg, and he didn't know Joburg. So what I then had to do was I had to fetch him from the airport in the morning. So he took a red-eye flight, and then I fetched him in the morning at the airport, and then took him to the client side, waited while he was interviewing, and then when he was done interviewing, then I took him back to the airport. And I mean, he really appreciated that. And for me, I could see how much it meant for him. And he did get the job eventually and got a very good offer. So and he got a very good offer. But yeah, so for me, it's never really just about placing someone. It goes far deeper than that. And I think being in this space, we are in a space where I think everyone always says we are doing a very thankless job. You barely get the thank yous. And I think you kind of get used to it, but you just keep on doing what you're doing because you enjoy it. So yeah. At the top of my head, that's what I could think of. There's a couple of other things, but that's the first thing that just came to my mind.
Okay. So now there's also been in the last couple of months, obviously, interviews that are done via Skype or Zoom or WhatsApp, whichever means. Now, what advice would you give candidates out there when it comes to those interviews? What should they know upfront before anything else? Like before you even start the interview, what should you know when it comes to those type of interviews?
Sure. So I think first things first is you need to know who's interviewing you, who you're meeting, because I think what I found sometimes is candidates don't really know who they're speaking to. They don't prepare enough. And if you're not prepared enough, that means you're not prepared to have a conversation with that person because you're not aligned. So that's what I found a lot. And by virtue of it being virtual, I found that sometimes people then don't prepare in terms of dressing up for the interview, and I think that counts a lot in just in terms of your presentation as a person. And I mean, if I just have to look at F&B, for instance, we're so chilled with dress code, and you know, but at the end of the day, when we have to show up, we show up. So when you get to meet candidates that, I mean, I've had to interview a candidate not too long ago. She didn't want to put her camera on. And then when we were like, okay, but you know, we want to kind of, even if it's just the first initial introduction, we just want to see you. And she was just like, I can't, because I still have my duke on. I haven't washed my face. It was very funny, but you know, but it's those kind of things. And I suppose when you're interviewing for a job, you want to kind of show up the best way you can.
So why is dress code so important? I mean, a lot of people have said always dress for the job you want. Why is it like very important, even when you can't see half my body? Just from what you know.
So from my experience, the kind of people we are, we get attracted to what we see. I don't know if attracted is the right word, but you need to look a certain part in order for the person who's going to be hiring you to look at you and kind of almost envisage you in a boardroom, being able to deliver a strategy, and how you look, the way you're presented, counts a lot, and hence when we then interview, whether it's virtual or face to face, that those are some of the things that we do want to see, you know, just to kind of know a different side of you, you know. And I think going back to what I said earlier, that even though we may not be in an environment where you have to dress formally every single day, you know, but for some things you need to show up in a particular way. So it's very important that you always dress according to how you need to show up in a particular situation.
So another thing, and that is true. I think one of the things that we've also learned in the past, I mean, some of us have been also doing this recruitment thing for a very long time, is that from history, sometimes the way you dress even helps you with the way you speak. I've realized that normally when I'm dressed down a bit more, my language changes, it becomes a bit more dressed down. But the moment I dress up, I put on my suit, I put on my tie, you know, I sort of elevates me just quite a bit to say, step in a bit. You know, you are now in a very formal environment, because you can't now throw in some vernac in the conversations, because some other people don't understand what you're saying. And you don't want to ever make the other person on the other side to feel like, you know, what did this guy just ask? I don't know what on earth he just asked. And you're disconnecting with that individual. Now, there's also been quite a lot of different interview styles. There's been panel interviews where it's actually you, the interviewee, and a panel of 5 people that are interviewing you. How do I prepare for that?
For a panel interview?
How do I get ready to just, you know, to deal with 5 people that are shooting questions at me?
Sure. So I won't lie, that can be very nerve-wracking, big time. Sure. But I think in terms of preparation, again, going back to, you need to know who it is that you're going to be meeting, because it helps the conversation flow. And it also, I always advise candidates that an interview should never be one-sided. In as much as you're being interviewed, but you also need to interview. But if you're going to interview, you need to know who it is that you're interviewing. And again, you need to then prepare and know enough about the company to find out, so that when you make a decision, you walk out of there and it's not just them saying, don't call us, we'll call you, but you must also be on that mindset. You must also be on that mindset, because it's just as important, you know. It's not just about you getting that particular job, but it's also about making sure that your values are aligned with that particular organization. And it just needs to be aligned. Otherwise, that's when you then find people taking jobs for the sake of taking jobs, and then finding themselves unhappy very quickly, and then looking to leave. And that's when we then see people that have too many hops on their CVs.
Okay. No, that's awesome. So I think just shout out to some of the guys that have just joined us. I've been sharing some of the names that are already up there. I see there's Benjamin Gillis that's there already. There's Kagiso that's out there. There's also who else? Wakile's got a very nice question that I'm gonna throw at you just now. Gloria has asked another question that we're also gonna, have to deal with. Kia is there, Musutu is there. Thank you guys for being part of this session. Vincent Matlangu is there. We've got Melgrad she's also there. We've got Florence. We've got James Chapman. Hey James. We've got Dikang Katla. That's a beautiful name. I wish I could just translate it, because normally in my Setswana understanding, Dikang Katla means, the strong ones. It's like you gotta be very, very strong.
Okay.
So hey, Dikang Katla, it's nice to have you guys here. So I think before we even get into the interview questions, I think this was one of the first questions that came up from Dikang Katla. His question is, why do firms need a CTC before disclosing what their offer is? So obviously you start the interview process, and then normally you've gone through the interview. There's that call from Nombu that says, hey, please share with us your CTC. Why do we do that? I'm not even going to say why do you guys do that. Why do we do that? From just your view, your views are your views, and it's not anybody else's views, but just from your understanding, why companies always ask for somebody's CTC before they disclose what they're currently offering.
Sure. So I'm going to answer it, but I'm also going to throw it back at you for you to add on. So candidates ask this a lot. And I think sometimes when you headhunt candidates, and you're trying to obviously attract them to the particular role, it's so important to know their current CTC, just because you don't want to waste anyone's time. So if I was to headhunt you, Tshidi, for a role, and I didn't have a clue what your salary was, you go through the whole process. You go through first round, second round, third round, who knows? You go through psychometric assessments, which a lot of people hate because they take hours and hours. Only for us to then find out that, wait a minute, Tshidi is on X amount, but we only have budget for X amount. That means we've wasted an entire month, could be, interviewing you, taking you through all that process. And I think also because we pay for assessments, so you don't want to take a candidate through for assessments when you don't have sight of what it is that they're earning, and not just your just the CTC, but the overall package, because some candidates also have shares. Some candidates also have things like study loans that they're working back with their particular companies. So it's always important to know all of these things up front, because I need to now go back and see whether we as a company can provide for that. But I think just to sum it up, it's just more about not wasting anyone's time, knowing that I can afford you from the start. Basically helps me decide whether I'm going to take you through the process or not.
Agreed. I think just to also add on my side, one of the things I've always explained this one is, like Nombu says, it's very painful to take somebody through a process where they sometimes have to take half a day to come and meet your panel, to take half a day to go through assessments, to do all these things, only for us to be able to say, here's what we've got from a benchmark point of view. Because one of the other things that a lot of companies will share with you is that they use benchmarks. So it's not one of those things where we think of a number and we're like, okay, cool, because you're earning 300,000, we're going to now offer you 350,000. You will find that in most cases, we've got a benchmark that says, this is how much our benchmarks are. And once we understand the benchmarks, understanding what the person is earning it helps you have that honest conversation also upfront to say, listen, our offer can only go up to like 450. Unfortunately, you're already on 600. So to try and even go through a process with you in this instance is not necessarily going to work. And most recruiters will be honest upfront to say, listen, based on the budget that we currently have, this is basically where the budget is. Now, there's also a flip side of it. The flip side of it is you'll find that, so we have a conversation with Dikankatla and we say, and he says, what are you guys offering? And then we say, Dikankatla, we're offering you 500,000. Dikankatla is currently earning 200,000. Goes back to his employer and says, hey, Mr. Employer, you've been underpaying me. Company X and this and that and then that, they want to offer me 500,000. I want my 500,000. Now it creates such a very bad feeling for you in your current company, because now you're fighting on stuff that you don't know what the new company was using to do the benchmarks. Where are they being benchmarked against? Because each industry has got its own benchmarks that they provide. So financial services got their own benchmarks, engineering's got their own benchmarks. All these have got their own benchmarks. And some of the benchmarks are based on even extra qualifications that you might have. Engineering might need you to have a project management skill that you've already done and some of these things. And the nice thing about that is once you understand the industry, it is fantastic and it makes it a lot easier for us to then be able to say, based on the benchmarks, we can't afford you or we can afford you. So that is the main reason why a lot of companies will always ask upfront to say, this is how much it is. In some cases, to be honest, even the recruiter doesn't even know how much the budget is. So sometimes the recruiter will have an idea in some companies of what the role could potentially pay, but sometimes they don't really know how much the budget is. So they want to be able to take that information to say, listen, Dikankatla is already earning 6 million. So if you already are looking at whatever, just know that he's already earning 6 million. So we might not be able to afford. And sometimes the business comes back and say, listen, 6 million, we're willing to pay another extra million. So we're comfortable with Dikankatla earning 6 million. So those are some of the things that we play around, is that in some instance, the recruiter still has to share that information with somebody that is still going to make that final decision on whether they can afford you or they can't afford you. The next question, I think the other thing that I just wanted to say, there's somebody who says confidence is important. And I do agree. In every interview, confidence is important. There's another question that's out there that says, do I then ask upfront when I receive the call for an interview, who will be interviewing me? Is that wise? Is that something you will advise? Do you think people should do that? What do you think?
Absolutely. So it's very important. In fact, I think it is normally shared, as far as I know. When you get invited to an interview, you would then obviously get an email with all the details. And on that email, there would be a panel where you see who's going to be sitting in that interview and what it is that they do. And then it becomes then your duty to then go and check those people out. I think because of LinkedIn, it's made it so much easier, because now you can kind of go on LinkedIn and check those people's profiles out and see what it is that they do, so that when you meet them, you're almost meeting someone that you know, even though you don't know them, but you're almost meeting someone that you know, and it becomes so easier to then just have a conversation and be comfortable, because you know who you're meeting. So it's absolutely important that you know who it is that you're going to be interviewed by.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Gloria, for your question. I'm going to now try and shoot all the questions through. Wakile says, what is the best approach when it comes to answering scenario-based questions and when you've never been in that scenario? How would you tackle this one?
Sure. So that's a good question, Wakile. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think honesty is the best policy, they say. So if you've never been in that particular situation, it's always so important to state that up front, because sometimes what we find sitting on the other side is that people have this perception of, I need to be this kind of person, or I need to come out as this kind of person. And when that happens, then you find yourself just waffling and making up something. And then you find yourself on the back foot, because we're looking at you like, what is she saying? You know, so if you haven't been in a particular scenario, be upfront and be honest about it, and say that you have not been in that particular situation. Therefore, you cannot comment. But if you have been in that particular situation, then the best approach to do it is to first explain what the situation was. And then when you're explaining a particular scenario, always make sure that you bring out what role you played, because sometimes you find that when people are asked scenario-based questions, they'll then say, my team and I did XYZ, and then this happened, and then that happened. At the end of the day, what we're trying to find is, what role did you play in solving that particular situation, and what did you learn from it, most importantly? So it's always good to just be able to explain the situation, the role that you played in that situation, and then also just the learnings from that.
Fantastic. And I think also the scenarios, you'll find that sometimes somebody will ask you about a scenario that, yes, you haven't been part of, but the other way you can actually do it is look at a previous scenario that you've been in that could resemble almost the same type of problem solving, because it doesn't have to be exactly the same scenario. Try and compare to another problem solving scenario that you might have been in another scenario. It could be schoolwork. It could be just about anything. Then use that to answer some of those questions. And like Nombu says, it's easy. If you've never been in a scenario where you actually can relate to the current scenario that they're asking you about, be upfront to say, listen, my scenarios haven't been anywhere near what you guys are looking at. So it's not the I don't have an answer at this stage. And the nice thing is they will then ask you the next question that will potentially be in the same scenario that you were part of. And then Benjamin Kenny says, are gaps in one's CVs a bad thing?
Sure. Gaps in what sense?
If let's say, for example, you've worked for maybe 3 years, and then after the 3 years, there's a gap, you were gone for another 2 years, and then you back work again for another 2 years, and then there's another gap for another 6 months. Is it a bad thing? Or is it is it a bad thing? I've got my own views about it, but
let's hear your views.
So I think my views are always that nothing is a bad thing as long as you can explain it. And I think it's always very important sometimes as candidates to be able to say, this is where the gap was, or this was what was happening at the time. Because we've had people that might have been retrenched 5-6 years ago, and they're struggling to actually find employment. And we ask them to say, I see there's a gap in between. What happened here? And it's easy to just say, listen, I got retrenched, or this is basically what happened, or I wanted to go spend time with my family. So I took some time off, took a sabbatical, and then after a while, I decided to just leave the job for a few more months. Now I'm back. I think that's, for me, as long as you can explain what the gap is, then it's easy. But if you can't explain the gap, then we have a slight problem.
That's a problem, yes. And I think, Tshidi, just to add on to what you're saying, remember, sometimes we look at CVs before we decide to engage with you as a candidate. So you also want to have information on your CV that states the reasons for those gaps. So right at the bottom of each role, you want to kind of have your reason for leaving highlighted, so that if it so happens that your CV has a lot of gaps, I don't need to call you to kind of find out why. Sometimes I want to look at your CV and automatically understand that, okay, you had to leave work because you had to go take care of a family member. And sometimes we find that or you left because you wanted to pursue a business interest, so put it on your CV so that you don't find yourself not being shortlisted for roles because I'm looking at the fact that you're just hoppy and not necessarily understanding why. Because sometimes when you eventually then engage with a particular candidate, then you'll find out why there's so many gaps. But I think it's also important to have it on your CV, because before anyone engages with you, they look at your CV first, and that's the deciding factor. That's the yes or the no. So please state it on your CV.
Yes, and I think Florence is just sort of added on to the previous question that we answered that speaks about scenario-based questions. Will it be okay? Yes, it'll definitely be okay to say in some instances, if this would have been my that scenario that I was in, this is what I would have done: 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just take it from there. But at least the nice thing is you're already saying, if I was in that situation, so you're already highlighting to the panel upfront, say, if you were, this is what you'll be doing. But because you have never been in that scenario, this is basically what's happening. And then there's a comment from Kia that says, just a comment, also, please do your research on the specific business unit you are potentially joining. Get all the necessary information from the recruiter so that you can do your research. So sometimes even find out, say, where can I find more information about this company? Sometimes they'll say, you can find it on LinkedIn, you can find it here, you can find it. So just do as much research as possible, because that is extremely important. And then there's one that says, but you still get a company that will take you through an entire process and still want to give you what you didn't state at the beginning when you were headhunted. Talent management reforms needs to be are needed. I think in most scenarios when it comes to this one, I'm just gonna quickly answer this one, Nombu, is
go for it.
Yes, some instances it becomes very difficult for recruiters to be able to come up to you upfront and say, listen, bruh, we can't afford you, to be honest. However, this is what we can afford at this stage. It is slightly lower than this, but these are some of the benefits that we currently have. Because I think that the one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily speak about is, the benefits that the people then get from that previous company or to the new company. So it is very important that you then, run with some of those things and share the benefits of that. And also remember, you have a relationship with that recruiter. You've been talking to each other for a long time. It's okay to turn down the offer and say, listen, based on what I'm currently earning and based on the fact that I don't have to travel that far anymore, I don't think it's necessary at this stage for me to take this job, because I'm definitely not ready to take on something lower. And we're going to quickly jump through some of these ones. Some of the toughest questions that he's ever been asked is, why does he want to leave the current employer? How do you deal with that one? Like where somebody says, why do you want to leave?
Why are you looking to leave?
Yeah.
Be honest. Sure. Be very honest. Funny, I had a similar question not so long ago. An incredible candidate applied for a role. He was previously with our company, but now with one of our competitors. And but he's only been there for, I think, about 6 months.
Yeah.
And so him and I ended up having such a long conversation, because I was also trying to just find, why are you actually looking to leave? Because when I asked him that, I was like, are things not going well? Are you getting retrenched? Why are you looking to leave 6 months into your current role? And he's like, no, actually, I'm very happy where I am. But I just thought, let me apply anyways, since I've been with the organization before for so long, and I kind of know everyone and the ropes and all of that. And I was like, yeah, but how are you going to answer that question when you get to the panel? Because should you be shortlisted, that's the first thing that they're going to ask you. Why are you looking to leave when you're working for such a great company? But you've only been in the role for 6 months. Anyways, so we had a long conversation about that, and I got to just advise him a bit about how to handle that kind of conversation. But when you're answering that question in an interview, it's important to be very honest. And I think when you're going for an interview and you apply for a role, you need to understand why. Because once you get your why correct, it's going to be easy to kind of answer it and not find yourself in a situation where you're kind of just going on and on and on and on, but you're not making sense. Because then the panel can sense that, and then you find line managers being reluctant to then go ahead with you when they feel like your reason is not strong enough. So it's important to understand why, and when you understand your why, you need to basically be able to answer to why that particular role is better than the one you're going into. So is it the role, or is it more the company? Because some people move because they want to work for a better brand, and some people move for money. you know, but of course they don't say this in interviews. They sugarcoat it, but some people move for money.
Is it a bad thing though to say I want more money? Is it a, like, if I said to you, listen, I want more money, would it be a bad thing?
I don't think so, Tshidi, because I found candidates who have been able to kind of explain it very well as to why they need more money, you know. So and I think we're people. So if you're able to explain why you want more money, without really getting into personal details, but we can kind of almost tell whether it's genuine or not.
Yes.
Because there are people that just move around because they want the next best salary. And funny, because I was having a conversation like this with some of my colleagues earlier this week, where we were talking about the fact that, you know, it's so bad out there now. How do you advise someone to not move for money? You know, and we're finding some companies. So just an example, I was speaking to a business partner, and she went through this whole process with this candidate. And the candidate got a good offer, and then when they went to resign, the company then offered them 50% more on their current 50%, right? So it's tough, because now with the economy, with the way things are going, with the whole COVID thing, and just everyone being so uncertain, people are finding themselves making choices because of money. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. People are finding themselves making choices because of the money. So answer this question, just be honest and be as genuine as possible, because it's either you're moving for a better brand in terms of the company, or it's something that will invest in your career or your technical skills. And you need to know that. You need to be able to articulate that when you're being asked that particular question.
Okay, fantastic. And then I think I will just answer the other piece that said, you know, and how long should you be in the current company before you realize that you're looking for a new job, keeping in mind the toxic environment, salary. I think Nombu's answered the salary part. I think with the toxic environment, there's always a better way of explaining that your views and the company's views, or your views and the line manager's views, are not necessarily aligned. And normally for us recruiters, the moment you start saying that, we sort of know that there's not a love relationship that's happening there. So we understand. And yes, sometimes we'll say explain further. There's always a better way of explaining some of these things without having to paint the previous manager or the previous company in a bad light. So yes, toxic environments, there is no time frame, to be honest. If you feel like you're about to lose your mind, it's okay to pack up and say, listen, guys, I love you, but I'm out. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to wait for 6 months or a year before you can actually start looking for other opportunities. Sometimes in the first month, you already know, okay, this environment is not going to work, because where I came from, this is what I was able to do. Here, I can't do those things, so I need to step out. And then Karabo Tulare says, what are the major mistakes that graduates do which messes up their chances for getting the job? What is the comparison between a job and a career aspiration? And what are the graduate change? How can a graduate change fields when entering the job market? For example, I study psychology, but I want to enter into the HR industry. And what is bad stipend income? Okay, I'm going to quickly answer this one so that I can give Nombu the difficult ones as well. She can then deal with that. Now, Karabo, I think the biggest mistakes that graduates make is that they don't do enough research. One of the comments that Kia had put out there was to say it is extremely important that you do research. You research the company, understand the role that you want to get into. A lot of graduates don't do enough research about the company. They don't even try and understand what the company does. We've had graduates that you ask them to say, what do you think our company does? And they can't even tell you what the company does. So the research is normally where it lets a lot of them down quite a bit. So I'd say if you're graduating, you're looking for opportunity, do as much research as possible. And then jobs and career aspirations. Jobs, you'll normally say, as a graduate, you'll normally start off with a job because you need an opportunity to start off the ground and run with it. Career aspirations or careers is normally where you've now identified what won't work and what will work for you, and then you start saying, okay, this is now my bread and butter. This is what I want to do for the next 20 years, and I'm comfortable that this is what I'll be able to do. That's when you start pushing on the career aspirations. And then if you want to change fields, I think it's a lot easier sometimes to change fields when you already started in an industry. But luckily for you who study psychology is still very, very important, the HR industry. So you're not far off. And I think a lot of the times you'll find that most companies will not necessarily dwell too much in your exact degree when it comes to the job that you're looking for. As long as you can explain why you want to get into that opportunity, then they make your life a lot easier. And then there was another question from Ben again that says, total cost to company. What is included in that, and what can candidates maybe negotiate on? Do you want to tackle this one, Nombu?
Sure.
So what's in a CTC? What do you add?
Sure. So with regards to a CTC, it definitely does not include your. It doesn't include your bonus.
Yes.
Sometimes I found that candidates will give you a CTC that includes their bonus. So let's say someone is on 1.8 million per annum. Then they will say that they're on 2 million because their bonus might have been 200,000 Rand. So so when you speak of a CTC, you cannot include a performance bonus because again, it's a performance bonus. So it's not going to be the same when you move on to the next company. And I always advise candidates to look at their bottom line when negotiating their salary, because sometimes you find that someone coming from another company into ours who may be on 800K per annum coming in, and then they say, no, I want 1 million. You give them that million, but then you find that their take home is more or less the same. So I always say to people, let's talk about what it is that you want to take home at the end of the month.
Okay.
And then let's work on that. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I always say that that's the best way to do it, rather than looking at the overall CTC, because companies structure their packages differently and also based on the different benefits that they have.
Okay, fantastic. I think, Ben, one of the things that also is included in the CTC, it's normally your pension fund, your medical aid. Those are some of the things that are normally included in that. And then when it comes to the package itself and what can you negotiate on, I think candidates shouldn't forget the fact that leave days are also very important, because it's normally costed on a leave day as well. So you might find that in some companies you've got 20 days and you move into a new company that's got 28 days. That's a benefit on your side. Or you might be leaving a company that's got 28 days into a company that's got 20 days. When you negotiate on the salary, you can negotiate on that to say, because I'm losing 8 days, this is how much 8 days will basically be. Can you please factor that 8 days into my package so that they already include that? So those are some of the things that you'll then negotiate into that. And then Tabi, so just sharing a very nice point to say, avoid calling panelists. Once you know their details, please don't call them. Yes, we share their details, but please don't call the panelists and say to them, hey, listen, I want to prepare for your interview. Please don't do that. That would be a disaster. So please, thanks a lot, Tabiso, for that. And then he further says, if you're not in that scenario, your get out of jail is the honesty, and that is correct. That is the best thing that you can actually. Honesty is everything.
Absolutely.
So guys, we left it about 20 minutes before the sessions ends. I'm just gonna quickly run through some of the things that we've got. And then there's another one from Tebuho that says, what are the key things to mention when you aren't formally qualified for a job or a role that you're interviewing for? What are some of the key things that you'd want to quickly see? Maybe Nombu, if you can just the 2 minutes into that one. What do you want to see if the person doesn't have the qualification that you're looking for?
Sure. So I look for curiosity. I look for the person's ability to collaborate. And I also test a lot of the critical thinking elements of it, and dependent on the role, of course. And some roles, unfortunately, you need to have a particular qualification. So if you're applying for a particular role that requires that qualification, so for instance, if you're applying for a head of analytics, those roles would need someone who has a maths or stats degree. So for those ones, unfortunately, then you cannot definitely you won't be considered. But you find some roles where they're just looking for people that might be qualified in terms of the years of experience, and I suppose at the end of the day, what line managers also look at is the person's development plans, because you may not have that particular qualifications, but what are you doing about it? What are you putting in place to get those qualifications? Because again, if it's a problem now, chances are it's going to occur later on in your career as well. So you don't want to find yourself every time when you're trying to apply for a job, that's always a shortfall. If it is a shortfall now, then you need to start doing something about it and get the necessary qualifications that you need in order to be relevant in your particular industry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nombu. And then I had just put a statement from Kwanele. Thank you so much, Kwanele. Exactly what we believe. And then Tato says, what is your salary expectations? Tato, I think this one, it depends on a few factors. So number one is, if somebody was to ask me what your salary expectations, the easiest way that I would say somebody could answer is to say, unfortunately, at this stage, I don't know what your benefits and what your CTC involves. So I'm not in the right state to be able to tell you exactly what my exact package is. But the assumption is that you'll be able to offer me something more than what I'm currently earning, and it will be a bit beneficial on my side. So you're basically avoiding answering the exact number question, but you're also just giving it back to them to say, if there's more information that you'd like to share, please do share that information so that at least I'll be able to tell you what my salary expectations are. And then there's another one that says, is it possible to prepare for psychometrics, or can one become good at psychometric testing? Is it possible?
No, and no. No, it's not possible. I wish it was. It's not possible.
So what advice would you then give somebody who's preparing for Psychs?
Be as honest as you can. Yes. I think that's the advice I always give candidates when going for Psychs. Be honest. I think sometimes when answering psychometric questions or assessments, you find yourself thinking what's meant to come out. So what are they hoping to get? And then you kind of draw this picture of, this is the perfect candidate that they're looking for. So therefore, I'm going to answer it this way. And that'll always come back to bite you at the back, because at the end of the day, those psychometric tests unfortunately don't lie. And they are a very important part of the decision making. So no, you cannot prepare, unfortunately, but you must just get enough rest before you go in. Get enough rest before you go in, but answer as honestly as possible. So be you, don't be who you think they want, but be you. And I think at the end of the day, authenticity is, English. Authenticity. That one.
That word.
Just be as authentic as possible. Yes. So long as you're authentic, then you're fine. Because at the end of the day, it's really just it's testing you and how you think, and just getting to know you psychologically.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Mpo's got a good point there that says, Wakile, not really, because assessments differ from company to company, and yes,
and from role to role.
Exactly. Rest the night before. That's also very important. And then Kutlaro says, what is the main difference between CV and resume? So I'll quickly take this one. So resume is normally what people send us. And I know we normally interchangeably use the words to say, here's my CV, but I'm talking about a resume. Resume is normally what a lot of people send, which is a summarized version of your document. CV is generally your that resume, including your portfolio of evidence, all the other information that comes in, any research papers that you might have. CV is actually normally like a huge stack of documents that explains your previous background. Whereas resume, to be honest, is what we always receive as recruiters. Normally people send us their resumes and they call it CV, but because in South Africa we use the words interchangeably, that's fine. You don't have to worry too much about that. And then Itumeleng says, how do you prepare for final round interview? Itumeleng, number one, go through what you went through in the first interview, the second interview, the third, or however many number of interviews. Go through how you've answered it. Secondly, you prepare as if you're going for the first interview again. Don't take it easy now and say, okay, final interview, I've got this. You prepare the same way. You go back to the company's values. You go back to the company statements, understand what the company is looking for. What are their values? Identify one or two values in that company that speaks to you, and use that to explain why you actually would love to go through that. And then there's somebody who's saying, thanks a lot for the session, guys. And he also doesn't know why. I also don't know why it's saying you are a LinkedIn user. It's horrible. To tell you the truth. And then Luto says, does the role of a recruiter include knowing the market worth of the candidate's role, or is it purely the homework of the candidate, or is it collaborative effort for both the candidate and the recruiter? How would you take that one? Or should I try and tackle it?
Go for it.
Okay, so part of being a good recruiter is about understanding the market and understanding what the person does. So, for example, if I'm an IT specialist in the recruitment space, part of what I need to understand is when we speak about development, what are the different languages that the different companies are using. It's making sure that I know exactly from my side, if we say we're going to need these particular skills in that particular role, I need to understand what that means and whether that is available in the market. And most of the times, the nice thing about LinkedIn is you can search and check how many of those skills are available for that particular role. Now, part of also what you also have, Luto, is also knowing your worth in the market to say, this role is worth this much and this is what I've actually been able to do. But it's not about presenting it to the recruiter to show the worth. Sometimes it's also about presenting to the panel to show that you understand what your role is worth and what you're worth as an individual. So it's both. It's a collaborative effort. You need to understand your own role in the industry and how it plays into that. What are the changes? I mean, if it comes to the industry, if somebody asks you about AI, you need to understand what AI plays into your space in that particular. So the research is also important for you as a candidate, and it's also extremely important for us as recruiters to understand that. And then number of pages on a CV. What's the rule of thumb?
Keep it as short as sweet as possible.
Yeah.
But by short and sweet, make sure that you always include what it is that you do in a particular role. Because what I've found sometimes is that when people think about short and sweet, all they do is they'll just list worked at this company, title, role, length of service in that particular company, and that's it. But at the end of the day, I want to know that, Tshidi, as a head of talent, what were you actually doing? Even if you summarize it and just mention your core responsibilities, because the rest might be generic stuff, right? So you want to mention your core responsibilities, but keeping it as short and sweet as possible is always best. But yeah, again, you don't wanna not include your whole career history, because then you don't want to have gaps. So what I found sometimes is that some people may not include roles that they may have done over 10 years ago. Yes, maybe you don't have to have all that information, but just put them there. But with the roles that are most recent, you want to mention it, and you want to mention what it is that you did in those particular roles.
Yeah, fantastic. So guys, and also the templates, when it comes to the templates, guys, if you go into your Microsoft Word document. There's so many amazing templates that are there.
Mm.
And yes, it is a thing in the sense that these one-pager templates allow you to sort of be concise and straight to the point. So just go into your Microsoft Word and check out some of the templates. And yes, those templates you can extend to more than one page. So it doesn't have to be a one-pager. You can still extend a lot of that information to a 2 or 3 page information, but it's just go and quickly use that. It's actually fantastic. Virtual interviews, Zandile says virtual interviews, considering the times that we're in. There's a few tips that I'll give anybody who's preparing for virtual interviews. Number one, I'll say, try and make sure that you find your best spot where the signal is strong. Like, I know this is a third world problem, but it's actually a real thing. Like, find a spot where your signal is very, very strong and sit in that corner. Make sure that there's a clear background. As you can see in my background, there's a little hut there in the corner, and that's it. I'm trying to avoid as many things as possible, because if I start showing you my back, what is happening here, you start really running around and running away. Same with Nombu. You look at her background, it's simple. It's a white background. It's got a mirror. I think it's a whiteboard in the background. So just simplify things. Make sure that you've got a nice background. And I think also Nomfanelo's got like easy stuff to say. Make sure that the camera is on. It shows that you're interested. Should dress for the interview and be professional. Those are some of the tips that I'll give anybody that's actually looking at going through those interviews. The network, and try and make sure that you tell people to not walk into the room while you're still being interviewed, because it happens. We're living in a world where you're looking after kids and they run around and you get distracted and you're like, where are you? So, but in most cases, it's okay to tell the panel up front to say, guys, listen, I've got a 1-year-old. They never listen. So just, mind me. It might happen that they might rock up. And then people always understand. And then there was one that says, Kukrano says, I once choked when I was asked my current salary. Why would the interview ask that? So I think in some cases, some interviews are over eager and they'll ask you those questions, but it's not necessarily what will happen in most interviews. And it's one of those things where you're like, for this particular session, unfortunately, I wasn't ready to answer that, because I just wanted to share with you some of my skills. And then should we go forward, then we can actually talk about what my current CTC and what my expectations are. So those are some of the easiest ways of actually answering that. Thank you so much, guys, for all these nice little things to say. Informative sessions. I love it. Gloria, thanks a lot for being there. Benjamin, thanks a lot once again. And then there's a few more that I just want to quickly address. We left with about 6 minutes. And then how do you then compare unlimited leave with a CTC with accrual leave? Sure. Okay. I think I need to answer this one a bit later. I'll come back to Tebo's question, because there's companies that have now changed the leave policy in such a way that it's unlimited. Maybe let me answer it now. So as much as it's unlimited leave, the reality is it doesn't matter where you work. You will never have enough time to take unlimited leave, whether we like it or not. Like even now, I can't even take a month off to say I'm just going to go up the mountains and do nothing, because the work still needs to be done. So in some cases, you'll find that there's a huge benefit from a leave accrual, because some companies allow you to sell your leave days, whereas unlimited leave, you can't sell anything because nothing belongs to you. It belongs to the company. It's just you trying to find time within that month to do that. So that's where the difficulty comes in, is that where it's unlimited leave, you need to find time to take a break from work and use that leave. But most people will tell you that they've never been able to take a month every year, even if you have unlimited leave. Whereas the accrual leave, if, for example, you resign, normally the company pays you out on the leave days that you still had extra. So that's where the main difference comes in. So it becomes difficult if you go into an unlimited leave company, because you can't negotiate using your leave days. And then the other one says, can I negotiate the benefits provided by the company? Arnold, unfortunately, in most cases, the benefits are static, like they as they are. Like you can't change them. You can negotiate an increase based on maybe I had more benefits than what you guys are providing, but you can't say, can I have these other extra benefits or these other extra things. So that's the other things. And then Paul says, yes, you can't prepare for that. And then there's a lot of confusion when it comes to CV formatting with the terms of the likes of 8 years compliant being thrown around. Okay, guys, 8 years is applicant tracking system. All it means is the place that you load your CV in, where you just say, okay, I'd like to apply for this role, and you load your CV, whichever company that's there, that is what an ATS is. Now, in most cases, we've realized that certain ATS systems or certain applicant tracking systems allow you to, or they've been formatted in such a way that they can extrapolate or take out some of the information on a CV and be able to easily present that. So if the ATS or the applicant tracking system is some of these new latest systems, what has been always advised is to say, try and use a Word document, because PDF sometimes it doesn't show some of the words or it can't pick up on some of the words. So try use it as a Word document so that when they search and say, these are the skills that I'm looking for, it's easier for them to get that information out of there. So that's what ATS is. So if you apply for some of these advanced new ATS or applicant tracking systems, try and use a Word document. It makes your life a lot easier. Where am I? Now I've forgotten where I am. Sure. Yeah, I got into the applicant. Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, okay, yeah. So I've just quickly answered that. Thanks for the session. How do you respectfully answer the question of how much you want in an interview? I think I've tackled that a bit. I'll load this session, guys, on YouTube again. I've loaded the previous one on YouTube, so please check it out. We're now running through this. Sorry, guys. I know, because I want to try and keep it to the time that I've asked you guys to stay with us. What if you have a lot of experience but no qualifications? Where does that put you? Now, a lot of companies will still look at your experience as well. The qualifications you can get as you join the company. So it's not a train smash if you have the experience but not necessarily the qualifications. You'll have those are some of the. I like Nomfanelo. She shares and helps a lot of us with some of these answers.
Yeah.
You switched your career path completely, e.g., from accounting field into property valuations. Will it still be? Will you still have to disclose the previous experience? Yes, the previous experience you have to disclose, but if you never completed the qualification, you don't need to disclose that qualification. If it's never been if let's say you started in engineering
and you did it on your CV.
Yeah, don't put it on your CV because you never completed it. But if you changed careers and you've worked, then please do share that. Yes, it's been recorded. We will share it on YouTube. My YouTube page is Tshidi's Top of the Morning, so please do check it out. And then, is it okay to present yourself to the company asking for training contract for a minimum salary just to be able to enable you to qualify as a professional? So, no. Normally the company wants you to come in and they'll pay a minimum salary because that's what's been required by the labor department. We can't substitute training for salary because a lot of companies will also pay for your training anyway while you're still working there. And then the other question that says, should you mention in the interview that you've been dismissed? I think there's a better way of actually mentioning that. You can always, there is going to be a time where there's a conversation, but the question would be the dismissal. What were you dismissed for? There's a better way of answering it, but yes, honesty is always the best policy because in most cases, when we do the references, we'll find out that you were actually dismissed. And then if the employer is willing to give you a 2-year contract, can you spread it out for 3 years? Unfortunately not, because normally they have the project that needs to be completed within a time frame. So spreading it gives them too much time and too much, then we're keeping you in that. And remember, Ivan, is as much as you see the cost of what you're receiving from a salary point of view, the company has to pay for your parking, they have to pay for your allocation for a desk, they have to pay for your laptop, for all these other things. So if you spread it over 3 years, it doesn't matter whether your salary is reduced because it's been spread over 3 years, those costs will still remain. You still end up having to pay a bit more money. and then a few more. We'll try and answer some of these questions, guys. Why are references still necessary? Past managers aren't always happy to see their employees leave. Guys, before you leave, if somebody says, can we contact your current employer? It is okay to say to them, guys, since I'm still at that company, these are the only people that I want you guys to call. Please don't call my current line manager until I've left. Because I'm worried of what might come, or the fact that it might not necessarily be a great experience for me. And most recruiters understand that, so they'll call that person after you've actually left. So don't worry too much about that. Thanks a lot, Teboho. I'm glad that you guys are there, and I think we've actually had most of the questions. Got a few lessons from that. Thank you so much, guys. It's been absolutely amazing having you guys. Nombu, anything you'd like people to know about you? Where can they find you? How can they track you down? Where do we go?
So where can they find me? LinkedIn. Please follow me. I'll definitely connect back with you. Otherwise, I can't even say social media because I'm neither here nor there.
Anti-social media person.
Yeah, but look, I plan on improving on that. But yeah, Tshidi, I think from me, just thank you so much for the session. It's always insightful. And in as much as we're giving the answers, but I think we'll also learn just from the questions that we're getting from the people that are watching. So thank you so much for arranging this session and for having me. I hope I'll also be part of another session with you. But thank you so much, and thank you so much to everyone who was watching.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you for having time to listen to Crazy Me and Nombu. Once again, please check her out on LinkedIn. Her name is there at the bottom, Nombulela Kali. Please follow her, request her to actually be one of your friends. Send some of these questions that unfortunately we couldn't answer. And looking forward to seeing you guys in the next couple of days. I'm going to keep Nombu coming back to these sessions because I can see she's awesome. She can do this, So she's one of those victims that I'm going to keep having going forward, guys. So looking forward to having Nombu again. We'll probably do another session in the next 2 weeks with Nombu. Tell us what you want to hear, what you want Nombu to answer for you guys, and then we will make sure that we try and answer some of those. Send her messages, tell her what you'd like her to address next, and then we will take it up and do another session. Have an awesome day and be safe and stay home and social distance. Have an awesome day. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.